of the big issues that Bruce Rauner is harping on, and I'm sure many others will, you know, when the income tax was passed, you and the Democratic leaders all said it was temporary. And now you don't want it to be temporary. How do you, you know, that's a broken promise. How do you respond to that?
Well, I said I was going to look at it from the time it passed in January of 2011 to when it expires. I wanted to review it on a regular basis. And I'm presenting the people of Illinois with a choice in this budget. We can switch off of a heavy property tax reliant way of funding schools to a different, fair way of doing it. That's what I favor, and that's why I have proposed this. You know, if the tax does expire, the income tax, then Mr. Rauner has to explain how he's going to make up for the loss of revenue, particularly for our schools, and particularly for the fact that he doesn't always talk about it at all, of when you don't fund the schools from the state, when you have a radical, extreme, severe cut of billions of dollars in education funding from the state of Illinois, something's got to give. And that means local property taxes go up. And so I don't want that to happen in Illinois. I think that would be a bad way to go for our economy, for our jobs, for fairness, and for those like him who claim to be champions of excellent schools, but they want to starve our schools by cutting their budget by 20%. That's just not telling the truth. And so I thought it was better to tell the truth about what we needed to do in the future. There's a choice. My budget will maintain the income tax rates, cut the property tax burden, put much more generous earned income tax credit in the system, and keep investing in education. The other side, they want to cut education funding radically, and they have no they don't have any excuse for that, in my opinion. That's the wrong way for Illinois.
Governor, I'm intrigued with this telephone conversation. I don't know if it was telephone or face-to-face conversation with Jim Edgar. I think he said on Tuesday. I mean, you point out correctly, he was a champion of this swap 17 years ago. Obviously, we all know in this room 3 years before that he was on the other side of the issue and used it basically to pillory, Dawn Clark and that. I'm just curious if you talked at all about that in, like, obviously you're winning an election here, just the pitfalls. And obviously, I don't expect a Republican to give you advice on how to run your campaign. But did that come up at all? Just kind of the dangers you face here with a plan like this heading into an election?
We didn't talk about that in '94. But we did talk about what happened in '97. It was a key moment in Illinois fiscal history. And he wanted to use more income tax revenue for schools and less reliance on property taxes. A lot of things, that was a much better economic time than we have now. And frankly, 5 years ago, we couldn't have done what I'm proposing today. We had to rescue our state from very dire circumstances. And we have, over 5 years, we've been able to make a lot of changes and reforms. But the bottom line is, to pass up this opportunity now, we'll come to regret it. If we listen to these prophets, false prophets, who say you can starve schools in their budget and somehow have a better product, that's not believable. It's definitely not believable that you underfund schools and you don't have the consequence of higher property taxes. So when people say, well, the income tax, well, yes, we have an income tax, but we don't have skyrocketing property taxes. Make your choice. And to me, I made that choice. I made the choice of a fair system to fund education.
Other than Jim Edgar, are there other people's counsel you sought out on this, you called or reached out to?
I called Jim Thompson, who had to deal with income taxes in his time and stuff like that. The difference between me and him on this issue is Jim Thompson did things after the election. Okay? We need money. Okay? We're doing this before the election. That takes some fortitude. But it's the right thing to do. And I think in the course of the campaign for governor, those who want to be governor who don't have a specific concrete plan of how they're going to fund schools and how they're going to stabilize or reduce property taxes, they're doing a disservice. So we got to make sure, well, it's part of my job, and I imagine everybody, to hear what they have to say.
I think what the critics would say, not just your opponent, but in general, is that they simply don't trust government and politicians to follow through in the words. And frankly, Exhibit A, even though you may be doing it for the best of reasons, is that aren't you breaking your promise by extending the temporary income tax? And if you're doing that, that really is a broken promise. Doesn't that strike you as an example of why people
I don't
trust
consider,
this?
no, I don't agree with that at all. The tax is expiring. Okay.
But back
what,
then when it was
Okay.
instituted, everybody was said, hey, honest to God, folks, in 2014.
Well, it was an
this
emergency measure. There's no question about it. At that time, we had to act, or Illinois would have gone to junk bond status, and we wouldn't have had enough money for schools. So something had to be done. That's what leaders do. They act. They have to act for the common good. That's exactly what I did. And it was, I think I was responsible and honest then, and I think I'm responsible and honest and specific and forthright now. My opponent is not. My opponent is going around saying tax less, spend less, and we're going to learn more. That's a lot of baloney. He's going to raise your property taxes and slash spending for education. I don't want to do that. And so we come to the end of this period, and we have a choice as a society to make in Illinois. And I am proposing this option for the people of Illinois. Instead of going back to a property tax system that continues to go up and up, condemning us to that, continuing a lousy system, frankly a 19th century system to fund the most important part of our system today. Education is the thing of the knowledge-based economy in the 21st century. So that's our choice. You can say what you want about promises. My promise is I want to make Illinois a better state. That's what governors should do. And we have a change in the tax system occurring at the end of the year. I do not want us to fall off a cliff. The other side wants a very simplistic, dishonest policy of saying, well, we can do everything and not have to pay for it. Well, that isn't true. And I went to college, same college as a fellow named Bill Clinton. And he one time said, it's all about arithmetic. And you got to add things up. And the other side doesn't add up.